Hello and welcome to episode 74 of the Wisdom from the Akasha podcast. My name is Suzie. I am your host and I am an Akashic Records teacher and practitioner. I will be spending some time over the summer months going into my Akashic Records, my business Akashic Records, and the collective Akashic Records to look at the energetic themes for 2026 and how I can support everybody the best that I can through the period of 2026. But before I do that and before I start sharing that information with you here on the podcast, what I wanted to do today is do a little bit of a mid-year check-in. So I want to take a look at the themes that were brought through last year that I shared at the end of 2024. So those themes that we have coming in for 2025, and just touch base on those themes, just refresh ourselves in respect of the themes. And as always, try to give you some tips and some guidance in respect of how to best navigate through these. I will pop the link to the blog post where I go over the 2025 energies in detail so you can go back and refresh yourselves. And I'll also be making reference to different podcast episodes that I have done throughout this episode. And of course, I'll put those links into the show notes as well. The first theme that I want to look at is this theme of we are in a mass awakening period. And when we are in mass awakening periods in respect of our journey as a soul going on its evolutionary journey, what this means is that either you may have experienced your spiritual awakening in 2025, or if you had experienced a spiritual awakening earlier than 2025, what you're now going to be experiencing is another level of spiritual awakening, a deepening, a more expansive range of consciousness. So this is what happens during these mass awakening periods. Mass awakening periods occur for a whole host of different reasons that I'm not going to get into today, but they can be very discombobulating. And I think I said back in 2024, my word for 2025 is going to be discombobulating. You can really feel like you don't know what's going on. You'll be asking yourself, am I going crazy? Why am I now questioning all of this stuff? It's okay. Take a breath. Okay. 2025 is going to be bringing up a lot of stuff for a lot of you, and that's okay. So if you are one of those people who are going through your spiritual awakening at this time, you're asking yourself things like, am I going crazy? Why do I have these new abilities, etc.? I would recommend that you go and listen to episodes that I have made on the spiritual awakening process. Familiarizing yourself with the process and how it unfolds can be really helpful to help you navigate through. And of course, there's lots of different resources, lots of people who share their own experiences. So it can be helpful for you just to revisit those. Now, all of the other themes that I want to talk about are really part of that mass awakening period. And these are more to do with how they're going to impact you internally, how they're going to show up, and also how they're going to show up externally. So I'll get into those now. The second theme that I raised in that blog post was this move from Solar Plexus Chakra dominance to Heart Chakra dominance. And this is predominantly for people who have been on their spiritual awakening journey for some time, but this has a lot of different aspects to it. We can see this with an internal shift from the question of what is good for me, which is very Solar Plexus Chakra dominant, into what is good for us as a collective, as a community. And what we often see when there's this shift from Solar Plexus Chakra into Heart Chakra, so focusing our consciousness and our energy from the Solar Plexus Chakra into the Heart Chakra, is a move from this obsession with trying to control every aspect of our lives. A lot of law of attraction teachings that are out there focus on this Solar Plexus Chakra level where you're trying to step into your role as creator. I create my own reality, those types of teachings. When you move into Heart Chakra, it's more about surrender, it's more about alignment, and it's more about co-creation. So it's not the fact that you're powerless when you step into Heart Chakra level. Really reclaiming and honoring your own power is what the Solar Plexus Chakra is all about. But when we come into Heart Chakra level, it's all about going, okay, yes, I have a say. Yes, I am powerful. And yes, I do have the ability to really impact my life in so many different ways, but I'm a co-creator. There is a higher force, there are higher energies that I can work with that are going to help guide me. I don't have to do everything myself. And I know a lot of people get very burned out in the solar plexus chakra level where they're trying to be completely responsible for everything that happens and everything that shows up. It can be quite exhausting. When we see this move from solar plexus chakra to heart chakra, another thing that happens is we get very cognizant of and wanting to kind of look into and work with the Christ consciousness energy. That, of course, is going to be a whole topic over in the membership. I'll do some podcast episodes on it as well. But if you have found yourself, perhaps you've come from religious background and now all of a sudden you're wanting to look at the teachings of Jesus, who was the Christ. So the Christ is a stream of consciousness. Don't be surprised. Okay, or you want to start looking at maybe the works of Mary Magdalene or the Gnostic Gospels or anything like that. And you may be thinking, well, I left all of that religion behind. Now I'm just spiritual. Why am I being drawn to this? And this is why. This is your magnetic center wanting you to understand and deepen your understanding of your connection to the Christ consciousness that lives within you as well. Along with this move, obviously, whenever we are moving through the chakras, which is what we're doing through the spiritual development journey, is these chakras don't work in isolation. It's not a case of, well, I just need to work on this one chakra. Anything that you do with one chakra is going to affect everything else. It's part of a much larger system. And because of that, what's happening is we're seeing lots of throat chakra activations. So people really wanting to align to the energy of authenticity, which is what the throat chakra is all about, and also more access to the higher heart chakra. So you can think of the higher heart chakra as being like a higher dimensional version of the heart chakra. So heart chakra is all about love. Higher heart chakra is all about unconditional love. And moving from love to unconditional love is actually a really big energetic move. So lots of you may have been experiencing symptoms of these different activations, and I will pop a link into the show notes about these ascension symptoms so that if you're going through these processes, you can understand what those ascension symptoms are and how they're going to show up. The third theme that came up was this idea of endings and impermanence. And this is because from a numerological perspective, 2025 is a 9-year. And what that means is we're ending things. Now, impermanence, so nothing staying the same, is a really hard thing, especially if you're in that solar plexus chakra level of consciousness where you want to control everything. You want to be able to micromanage everything. And this idea of meditating upon impermanence is very important. So knowing that everything changes, knowing that everything has cycles, knowing that expansion and contraction are both valid. You may find in your own life that certain things are coming to an end, whether that's careers, relationships, friendships, old belief systems, whatever it is. And we can be very uncomfortable with things ending without knowing where it is that we're going. Okay. And what I would recommend to everybody is that you work with that energy of impermanence and getting comfortable with change, getting comfortable with this energy of impermanence. And what can be really helpful in doing that is working with the crone energy. So the crone energy is the aspect of your internal divine feminine energy, which is going to help you to navigate your way through endings, especially in the gap between the ending and the new beginning. So that is what is called the liminal space. And we can often need support and assistance from different energies that we have access to within us and with our guides to help us through those types of times. The fourth thing that was coming through for 2025 was this advancement of technologies. And the key thing here to remember is that any advancement in technology that we see externally, which we have seen a lot of in 2025 and we're going to continue to see, is a reminder that we have the same opportunity for advancement on our internal technology. Okay, what we have to remember is that we have an internal technology, we have abilities within us, and when we see this external reflection, because the external is a reflection of the internal, our job is to look inside and say, right, well, how can I start to work with and deepen and expand my connection to my internal technologies? This may be for some of you learning about the chakra system. For others, it may be understanding the different bodies that we have. So the etheric body, the astral body. For others, it might be just really working on those clair senses. Okay. Whatever it is that you're feeling called to work on, deepen your connection to and strengthen, please do go with that. The fifth theme was around this deepening of your spiritual development, which goes hand in hand really with that advancement of the internal technology that's available to us. So do not be surprised if you find yourself being drawn to understanding more complex esoteric topics than you have done previously on your journey. You may have gotten bored with the mainstream narratives in respect of certain spiritual concepts, and you might now be wanting to really do a little bit of a deeper dive into those more complex esoteric topics. What this also means, and what I've seen a lot with people who I work with regularly, is this is the move from knowledge, so this understanding, this kind of very mental faculty of book knowledge, to gnosis. So that internal knowing, that allowing for space for that gnosis to come through, really feeling into, does this resonate with me? So not just taking something at face value, but actually doing the practices and taking the time to create the space to feel into your own gnosis. Your own gnosis is going to be super important for 2025 and beyond. And I've talked about this, and again, I'll put those episodes into the show notes for you. The sixth theme that I brought through for 2025 was this expansion of cosmic consciousness. And this is really exciting because this can be a really expansive time for people. It can mean that you are starting to remember past lifetimes, perhaps past lifetimes within different planetary spheres. You may start to get new guides coming in, and it's a really interesting time. But what I always say when you're starting to open up to this cosmic consciousness is please remember to have your discernment and resonance, especially when you've got new guides coming in. Remember to always be checking in with yourself. Does this feel connected to the evolutionary stream or the de-evolutionary stream? As you'll have heard me say before on the podcast, a lot of people are going through this astral level of initiation, which I covered in the membership last summer. And when you're going through that astral level of initiation, you're being asked to discern, you're being asked to tune into that. Because the de-evolutionary stream knows that there is this expansion into cosmic consciousness, there may be an attempt to put forward themselves, beings from that de-evolutionary stream, as being new guides or new energies. So do just keep your wits about you when you're going into that cosmic consciousness. I know it's exciting. I'm all for expanding your conscious awareness, but do so in a way that you're not going to get sidetracked or led astray. The seventh point goes on from that, and it's this real, true, deep desire that people are having to connect to their own soul, those different aspects of themselves or their guides or source consciousness, God, however you want to frame any form of higher intelligence that you want to connect into. And again, my comments would be the same. Just make sure you're doing all of that work in a way that is still bringing into mind, does this resonate with me? Does this feel expansive? And if necessary, educating yourself on the astral plane and the beings of the astral plane so that you can go through all of that with that education. It can be very important. If you're in the membership, you've only just newly joined the membership, there's a 5-part series in there on the astral plane, which covers all of these different aspects, which will be really helpful for you. And the final point that I brought through for 2025, and I've definitely seen a lot of this happening online and in conversations that I have with people, and I think it's brilliant, is this much deeper desire to connect to earth, to connect to the physical body, and to have community and connect to community. Sometimes there can be a little bit of a predominance of the up and out energy, this energy of escapism, bypassing, because a lot of the time when you're coming to your spiritual journey, you're doing so through trauma, okay? And there can be a tendency to want to use certain practices to bypass and avoid things. And again, I've covered this in different episodes, so I'll link those in the show notes. But what I've seen this year is a lot more people saying, okay, I've maybe been bypassing a little bit. I've maybe been avoiding looking at this stuff that, you know, my body still remembers. And now I'm going to take the time to turn my attention and focus to body-based practices, to somatic practices. And also with that, wanting to move from a point of isolation or the hermit mode part of the spiritual awakening, so just wanting to be by yourself all of the time, to actually wanting to find people who they resonate with, find people whose energies match, find people who can help each other and, you know, build much more of a stronger community. This doesn't surprise me because what we are having is another rise of that internal divine feminine energy. I am going to host again in the autumn my internal divine feminine energy class, which is Awakening the Divine Feminine. I will pop a link to the waitlist for that one, so you can grab the early bird discount code for that. I'll pop that into the show notes. And it can be really helpful to, first of all, understand what that internal divine feminine energy is. We've gone through a period of, especially in spiritual development, it all being based on internal masculine energy practices. And there's nothing wrong with that to a certain degree. We need those practices, but we also need a balance with the internal divine feminine energy practices. Of course, I would love to see you all there in the autumn so that you can start to learn how to work with your own internal divine feminine energy, which is going to strengthen your intuition. It's going to help you regulate your nervous system. There's a whole host of benefits for it. And then I just wanted to finish off this episode with reading the summary that I wrote in that blog post, because I think during times of mass awakening periods, we can feel very alone, we can feel very discombobulated, and it can feel quite tough. And the very last thing I want is for anybody to get bogged down in the energies of fear and division, these different narratives that get pushed. And remember what it is that we're here to do, that your soul signed up to be here during this time. And it's a really exciting time from evolution. So my summary was this: 2025 is going to be expansive, activating, and full of change. Never get caught up in the fear and or division narratives that get pushed during periods of mass awakening. We are all in this together, and we can all support each other through this beautiful time of expansion and co-creation. So I hope that you have found this episode helpful. I hope this has given you a bit of time to pause and reflect upon how your year has been going so far, and perhaps think about what you may want to introduce to your own spiritual practice for the remaining 6 months of 2025. I, of course, look forward to seeing you next week for the next episode.